Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Our guest today is Barry. So Barry, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
Yeah, hey, nice meeting you. My name is Barry Toren. I'm actually, right now I'm in New Jersey at the beach outside of Philadelphia, the South Jersey beach. But I actually reside in South Florida. We moved out there during the early stages of the pandemic.
Awesome. And just tell me kind of about what you do in your business.
Yeah, so I'll give you a quick backdrop. I just turned 50, so a pivotal year for me. I attended Lehigh University, a small school in the Pennsylvania area, and have an accounting degree. My father was an accountant. I grew up basically only knowing about accounting and the teaching profession. So I really didn't feel like I had the unlimited opportunities in terms of career choice. So I did the accounting undergrad at Lehigh, ended up getting a job with Anderson before I even graduated. Realized very quickly I didn't love audit, but I did transition that into a role at Deloitte in a management consulting role and tried to move over into the professional services. Did that for a few years and then actually got recruited to a client, Merck, a pharmaceutical company. I did that for a number of years. I was at Merck for 5 years. So I went from being a consultant to then being a consultant at a company. So my role was basically internal process improvement. And that experience was I remember telling my dad that I was going to work at Merck and he was super excited and blue chip company. But when I got there and my experience there, it was during a really interesting time there. They had pulled a drug, Vioxx. It was just the stock had gone from 100 to 25. So I'm a fairly young individual and I'm getting to experience all this misfortune during this corporate turn of events. And frankly, I didn't see a lot of value in me being in corporate. And I was just starting to wonder. I was about 30 years old and I got a call from a former Deloitte colleague of mine who had just joined the ranks of executive search recruiting. And fast forward, I was at that company was Korn Ferry. Korn Ferry is the largest executive search firm. At Korn Ferry for almost 20 years, we went from a $300 million business to over a $3 billion business. We went from executive search being 90% of the business to it being only about 35% of the business in terms of an expansion of both services, offerings, and geography. Just everything expanded at Korn Ferry. And but anyway, in my personal journey, I got to a point where I had just done just about everything I could do. I was in a leadership role from a sales leadership, and the pandemic hit, and it's sort of I had actually quit drinking. I was a bit of a fan of alcohol to the point of too much, and took the pandemic to get myself cleaned up, lost some weight, moved the family down to Florida. And although I stayed at Korn Ferry, that's what really started the entrepreneurial journey. And it started with my oldest son. He was a sophomore at University of Miami, and we started a pickleball business called Killer Dinks with the hat. And that was really our journey of just going into it and just going all in. Well, I should say half in because I still had my corporate job at that time.
Awesome. So just tell us. Go ahead. And
then just quickly on Killer Dinks it started off as we had all this great IP, NFTs and the blockchain. We had collected that and we had a lot of just great looking artwork and access to artists. We took a bear design, a bear character and built around this NFT platform called the Killer Bears and created Killer Dinks. What started off as just a brand business, my son actually much better than I really pivoted into a custom business, a custom pickleball. Pickleball's expanded unbelievably, as Dan, I'm sure you've heard. It's been crazy. The challenge of everyone, there was very little barriers to entry 5 years ago, a little bit more so now. So trying to figure out your specialty in the pickleball space. And my son did an unbelievable job in that. The pickleball paddle is a great place for a logo, and he's turned it into a B2B custom business. So it's an event driven. A lot of organizations, charities are doing pickleball events, pickleball paddles. It's fairly inexpensive to get custom paddles for those events, leave behinds. It's also great selling to a lot of realtors for like home packages, leave behind. Pickleball is one of those things that the great thing about pickleball is anyone can play, from young to old, black, white, doesn't really matter. It's like the most accessible sport, even from a skill level. You could be basically a terrible athlete and be pretty good at pickleball. So anyway, I'll shut up there, Dan, but that's kind of the full circle of corporate to entrepreneurial. And then you get the bug. And once I started, then I couldn't stop. And that's where it's like, then you just start a lot of different stuff.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm looking at like your site. I mean, your paddles are pretty awesome. Like I was looking at like the Poppy one, some other designs, like very like high quality designs. And I love, what you guys have done. So I'm curious in terms of designing your paddles, like what does that process actually look like?
I mean, it's amazing now with the technology enhancement and the quick turnaround. Like basically with there's like literally you can go on the website, customize a paddle and press enter and get 25 paddles get to you in about 3 weeks time of any design that you want. I mean, obviously within reason, we're going to screen that for things that aren't appropriate and also to protect logos and stuff like that. But it's a really transparent, very easy customization process. And then with AI, you have just like the sky's the limit in terms of putting your own flavor on things. So again, the pickleball paddle is just a great, easy, flat canvas to put art. It just turns out that it's just a great way to demo whatever you want to demo.
For sure. And I guess in terms of like actually making those paddles, did you guys find a good manufacturing partner or making it like in-house? Like what did that process kind of look like for you?
Yeah. So the process, I will say my son, which is amazing, he was probably 20 years old at the time. I was with him along for the road, but he actually learned a ton and it's really a skill of his now, but starting just forming some relationships through Alibaba. And that was during the pandemic, only to learn that some larger companies were also using Alibaba too. And there was just like all hands on deck. People didn't know how to get product. So people were just trying whatever worked. Some stuck, some didn't. But based on some of those relationships and communicating with, and a lot of this is offshore manufacturing, not manufactured in the US. So, but through those relationships over time, you just build, it's amazing going from making a few transactions to then having multiple transactions to then many transactions to then having some issues with the manufacturer to then resolving the issues to then really becoming a partner and almost a trusted member of your small business, even though you're obviously, they're just a partner, but it allows small companies to really feel like there's great expansion possibilities.
100%. And then in terms of like quality control, have you guys gone over to China to like meet the manufacturers? Like what does that process kind of look like?
No, it's actually great. So my son will be going out there probably in the next 6 months. So it's been 2.5 years and we have not. We did hire someone that goes out there and periodically does the quality checks. There is reasons that you need to do that. I think one of the things on a going forward basis that as he continues to increase the size of the business, we'll be just getting more confidence, more ownership, more accountability. But that's obviously been a growth area for us.
For sure. And I guess in terms of like finding your customers, B2B is a whole different channel. So what's been like the best method so far? Has it just been like cold outreach, like on LinkedIn, conferences, ads? Like what is, really work for you guys?
So just seeing it from like more of an advisory standpoint, sitting on top of my son who's sweating through it. What I've seen is, I mean, LinkedIn's been amazing for someone who like seeing a 22-year-old reach out and having success reaching out to various executives or just finding the right person to reach out to. It doesn't mean you have a guaranteed sale, but it's less than a cold call. You're finding out to the right person at the organization to at least try to connect with. And I think there are a lot of different techniques. What we haven't experimented is in like the blasting of like email blasts. Like we haven't gone that route. It's been much more of a grassroots B2B where my son is leveraging a University of Miami network and the fact that he's a young professional that's really grinding it out. That sell is a lot easier than this like random sell. We haven't figured out the algorithm to just the things that you see on Instagram where it's like you post this, it goes viral and all of a sudden the money machine goes cha-ching, cha-ching. it's a little bit more of a, yeah, I would say right now grassroots, and trying to figure out that transition from how do you get it away from completely grassroots to taking in some of this like new technology, this new outreach, and then leveraging things like AI in terms of using that as part of your outreach.
For sure. And then I guess in terms of like for the business, like what is kind of like your vision? Do you want to stick to this like B2B channel, or do you want to do more direct to consumer, like physical retail? Like what are your thoughts there?
I mean, from an advisor standpoint, I would say that the great thing is we're a custom business, but we actually have a brand associated with it. So there's an identity behind it. We've had to pivot and focus a little bit more on the B2B because that's actually what's paying the bills for my son to eat and live with his girlfriend in Miami. However, I think in the future, if you want to really be successful, then you have to join and really build out the personal brand to go with the customization, because everything else is just a commodity. And you see what's going on with AI. It's the human touch. The more you can put your own personal flavor and brand. So where you may not see the initial return on investment in building out the brand piece, I think long term it will pay for itself. I just think as a young entrepreneur, seeing my son, it's like you see him gravitate towards the things that are going to get immediate flow. And I don't blame him. It's what you have to do to survive. But the other things I think are building that long-term loyalty. It's the stuff that sticks. I mean, I had a 19 plus year career. It's hard to see it. That was at one company. It's hard to see like each year individually. It's like you can only really see it as a 19-year block of time. And when you look at Killer Dinks, it's really in its 2.5-year journey. So it's so early. I'm really just proud of my suggestion for anyone who has a chance to work with a relative. Like, I know there's a lot of horror stories. And again, I think definition of roles, and my role is not to run this day to day, but to really advise my son in anything that he needs me to advise him on. But it's been an unbelievable bonding experience. Not to say that we don't fight and we don't disagree, but if you think about life, it's like there's nothing better than have a reason to really speak with family members. And it's like we're building together, and it's a really special thing. It's something that I would highly suggest. It's brought a lot of meaning to my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you were mentioning earlier before we jumped on the show that you've also endeavored in some other entrepreneurship things. So yeah, like if you can share with our audience kind of some of your other projects, like I guess what else like are you working on these days?
Yeah. No, so Dan, like one of the things that I sort of fell out of love with just doing recruiting after doing it for 20 years. But with that being said, if I look at like where I bring the most value, it's in that realm. So I didn't want to leave it, but I didn't want to be focused on just printing money on doing searches. So I've spent a lot of time soul searching and actually building out a coaching advisory business, coaching, public speaking, but with it's called human being first. And it's going to be a business. So I don't want to suggest that there's, anytime there's a business, you're in it to make a little bit of money here. But the goal really is, I'm 50. I meet a lot of really high integrity folks out there that are knee deep in their corporate careers or making transitions. And frankly, they have so much value, and ex-military, ex-corporate, whatever it may be. And I see there's a lack of these senior people talking to the junior people, if that's at schools, if that's at younger professionals, but there's this like lack of communication that's going on. And since people don't go to offices as much, I really feel like there's this coaching / advisory support that not just another podcast is the way. I love podcasts, by the way, but like something that is in addition, because I do think people lack mentorship. And that's the one thing that someone my age, all you want to do is kind of provide mentorship to people. They can take it or leave it. And it's less about making the money at this point. It's more about really providing the value. So in my mind, it's like, how do we bridge that gap? And that's what I'm building. And it's not black and white, or else I would have already got started. But it's all about trying to build this high integrity group of individuals to serve a lot of different needs.
That's awesome. So if you could go back in time to before you started your entrepreneurship journey, what is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew?
It's interesting because I am starting my entrepreneurial career. I basically started at 47 because I was corporatized for so long. But I would tell you the one thing that I see just through my son is like, you have to make mistakes. You have to keep on moving. So avoid being paralyzed. So sometimes it can be overwhelming. You could feel like you're not winning or you're constantly doing things that aren't resulting in short-term victories. I feel like you got to get outside. You got to talk to people. Like every interaction with another human being, or even just taking a walk and going to Starbucks and getting a cup of coffee. What I've noticed in life, if you have your eyes open, then you will find something every time you intersect with the world that improves something else in your life. So like, it's really about like not being paralyzed. And I think what I see, and I'm guilty at times, is like, because the phone, there's so much entertainment, like it's not paralyzed in the form of like you hate your job. It's just like you can get stuck doing the same, like looking at the same reels for 6 hours and realize that you just wasted half your day. So it's really keeping it moving. And the thing that I can, now that I've been, I spent many years working in an office to now not working in an office. And I think the key thing here is like keeping moving and meeting people and interacting. If it's video, it doesn't matter. It's like, you have to actually talk to people. Like as a recruiter, I said, like, don't worry about the job. The most important thing is the audition that you have. Every person you meet is an audition in life. So like, you don't know when it's going to come into play, but you want everyone to put you in this pile that's like the awesome pile. And you just don't know when they want awesome. But like every day when I meet everyone, I just want them to be like, this guy's a little different. He's awesome in his own way. Like a lot of people were like, this guy's fucking crazy too. But like, if you just meet, you have to meet people, and then you'll meet enough like-minded people. And that's when things get going. Like I feel like I've seen times when I look at my son, he's just, not that he's scared because he's unbelievable, but like you get a little bit like overwhelmed. And my thing for him is like, just go out and play a game of pickleball. You run a pickleball business, go play pickleball. And he kind of feels guilty that he's not working, but then he'll realize that he played pickleball and he ended up meeting someone that changes the business for like the next week. So like, that's maybe like trying to get out of your mindset of like, what is work and what's not work, and trying to find something that you can just blend your life and work so that you have really true alignment. And that's really what I've done for the last couple of years. I just try to go with like adding value, being smart one day at a time, as opposed to trying to like forecast the journey. Easy looking back, impossible looking forward.
That's good advice. So if somebody's watching this show, and if they wanted to reach out to you, if they wanted to work with you or find your business, do you mind sharing your website or social media channels?
Yeah, I think the best, like I'm really active on LinkedIn. I find LinkedIn to be one of the better sort of social, like I think it's in a world where professionals don't really get to self-promote at all. I do think it's like one place where like that you should have like a good representation of yourself. But yeah, at Barry Toren, easy to find on LinkedIn.
So, well, Barry, thanks so much for your time today.
All right. Thanks, Dan.